When historians speak of the aircraft that changed the air war in the Pacific, few machines command as much intrigue as the Lockheed P-38 Lightning. Its radical design with twin booms and dual engines was unlike anything the world had seen. But beyond its striking appearance, what truly makes the story compelling is the reaction of those who faced it. The Japanese pilots and commanders who suddenly realized that the sky was no longer theirs to dominate. At the outbreak of the Pacific War, Japan's Mitsubishi Zero reigned supreme. It was light, maneuverable, and deadly at low altitudes. Japanese pilots were confident, almost certain, that no American fighter could match their prized aircraft. That sense of superiority, however, began to crumble the moment the P-38 appeared in the Pacific skies. The Lightning was unlike any fighter Japan had encountered before. Its two powerful Allison engines gave it blistering speed and astonishing climb rates. It could soar higher than the Zero and dive faster than almost anything else in the theater. Most importantly, it had the range to escort bombers across vast stretches of the Pacific, making American strikes more dangerous than ever. To Japanese eyes, this was not just another enemy plane. It was something new, something that shifted the balance of air power. Reports from Japanese pilots reveal the shock of those first encounters. They described a machine that seemed impossible to shake. Even when riddled with bullets, the Lightning refused to fall. Unlike their own fragile aircraft, which often disintegrated with a few hits, the P-38 could absorb punishment and keep flying. Its dual engines gave it a survival factor that no Japanese fighter could rival. For pilots used to seeing enemies burst into flames after one good shot, this was deeply unsettling. Japanese tacticians had long relied on dogfighting agility to defeat heavier American aircraft. But against the P-38, this approach faltered. The Lightning could climb above them, dive through their formations, and unleash devastating firepower from its concentrated nose-mounted guns. While Japanese fighters relied on wing-mounted weapons with limited accuracy, the P-38's central cannon and heavy machine guns struck with surgical precision. It was, as many Japanese pilots admitted, a predator unlike anything they had prepared for. As the Lightning's presence grew, so did its reputation. Japanese intelligence began referring to it as a two-in-one machine. To them, it carried the long range and endurance of a bomber while retaining the agility of a fighter. This was not a plane built for one role. It was built to dominate across many. That concept was foreign to Japanese design philosophy, which prized lightweight, specialized machines. And so, the P-38 exposed not only the vulnerabilities of Japanese aircraft, but also the limitations of their strategic thinking. The psychological impact was enormous. Every time American bombers appeared with a shield of P-38s above them, Japanese commanders knew the odds had shifted. Missions that once seemed manageable became suicidal. Fighter sweeps that had once been easy kills turned into desperate struggles. Japanese pilots began to whisper about this new enemy, calling it names that reflected both respect and fear. In their minds, the Lightning was more than a machine. It was a symbol that their skies were no longer safe. The shocking truth for Japan was that the age of the Zero's superiority was ending. The Lightning had proven that American engineers could not only match Japanese designs, but surpass them. For the first time, Japan faced an aircraft that turned their own tactics against them, broke their confidence, and revealed that the tide of air power was shifting in the Pacific, and this was only the beginning of what the P-38 would mean for Japan. If the first encounters with the P-38 Lightning shocked Japanese pilots, what followed in the months ahead forced an even greater realization. The aircraft was not just another fighter, it was a weapon of strategy. A tool that changed the entire war in the Pacific. Unlike the Zero, which was designed for one purpose, air superiority at close range, the Lightning was versatile. It could fight in the skies, strike targets on the ground, and scout over vast distances. Japanese commanders quickly realized that this single aircraft could perform the work of several. American squadrons began to use the P-38 for long-range escort missions, protecting bombers on raids deep into Japanese-held territory. For Japan, this was devastating. Bases once thought untouchable now faced relentless air attacks. Supply lines that stretched across the Pacific were suddenly exposed, and outposts that had been secure became vulnerable overnight. The aircraft's resilience added to its menace. Japanese flyers wrote in their combat diaries that even when they managed to damage a Lightning, the twin engines almost always carried it home. They compared it bitterly to their own machines, which were fast and agile, but fragile. A Zero could outturn almost any opponent, but if it took a single burst of enemy fire, it rarely survived. The Lightning's toughness forced Japanese pilots to risk more, push harder, and fight with dwindling chances of survival. Propaganda, too, began to reflect this fear. In newspapers and broadcasts, the Lightning was sometimes called the fork-tailed devil, a name that spread quickly among enemy forces. It was a rare instance where even Japanese propaganda could not dismiss the threat. The people were told that the Americans had unleashed a demon of the skies, a machine capable of striking from anywhere, at any time. For the pilots who faced it, this was no exaggeration. The fork-tailed silhouette became a sign of danger, an omen that a mission might end in flames. But perhaps the greatest shock came not from its combat power, but from what it symbolized. The P-38 proved that American industry could create advanced, reliable, and devastating aircraft in massive numbers. While Japan struggled to maintain production and refine outdated designs, the United States rolled out Lightnings in quantities that Japan could never hope to match. Every new squadron of P-38s was not just another threat in the sky. It was a reminder of Japan's weakening position in the war. The Japanese military did not underestimate the psychological impact. In debriefings, pilots reported feelings of helplessness when facing Lightning formations. Some commanders tried to develop counter-tactics, urging pilots to attack from below or avoid combat altogether. But these strategies rarely worked. The Lightning could climb too high, dive too fast, and shoot too accurately. Its adaptability erased the traditional advantages of Japanese aircraft. By the later stages of the war, the Lightning had become more than a fighter. It was an icon of America's growing dominance in the Pacific. For Japan, the shocking truth was clear. The age of Japanese air superiority was gone. Their legendary Zero, once unmatched, had been eclipsed by a machine that was stronger, faster, and tougher. The P-38 Lightning was not just an aircraft to Japan. It was the physical embodiment of a changing world, a signal that technology, industry, and strategy were all aligning against them. For the pilots who saw its forked tail glinting in the sun, it meant only one thing: survival had become uncertain, and the empire of the rising sun was beginning its long descent. In the annals of history, the Lightning remains remembered, not only for its victories, but for the shock it delivered to those who once believed they could never be challenged.